If you visit Sossusvlei in Namibia and you get up in the dunes, one kind of life that you're very likely to encounter are lizards. The dry regions of southern Africa are very rich in reptiles, and there are many different kinds of lizards even in the Namib. But there are two lizards that you're most likely to encounter during the daytime at Sossusvlei. These are two kinds of sand lizards. The first one you're likely to encounter is called the wedge-snouted lizard. Wedge-snouted lizards are often around vegetation at the base of dunes. You find them in the interdunes, and you might see them scurrying across the ground even as you're walking towards the dunes, so long as you're in an area that's sufficiently sandy. They're very fast. They often shelter under bushes during the heat of the day, and you might see them scurrying around very quickly as you're walking towards the dunes. These wedge-snouted lizards are also very common in the vegetated areas if you're on the eastern side of the dune field. Because they run so rapidly when they are moving, the best way to get a good look at them is to wait until they're sheltering under some vegetation and just take a look at a distance, perhaps with binoculars. Being diurnal, meaning being active during the day, a very important thing for these lizards is to manage their temperature, their body temperatures. Although the wedge-snouted lizards are able to go underneath the sand if they need to, in general, their main way is to be active in the cooler mornings out on the sand, and then as the day gets warmer and warmer, they're going to spend most of their time under the shade of bushes. The second kind of lizard is the shovel-snouted lizard. You're most likely to encounter these if you take the time to get up onto a big dune. They like the very soft sand, often where there's no vegetation at all, and the sand is very loose. They're often on the slip face, the very steepest edge of the dunes. Because of the very exposed habitat that they live in, they don't have bushes to go and hide under, and so their main defense is to slip into the sand. If you take a careful look at the design of this lizard, it's got these big, oversized back feet, quite a strong muscle at the top of its tail, and a very sharp edge to the front of its mouth. All of this is part of its evolutionary design for a life in soft sand. Not only is the sand its escape from predators, it's also its way to regulate its body temperature. If you climb up a big dune, an interesting thing to do is just to stick your hand into the sand on a hot day. The surface sand temperatures can be extremely hot, above 60 degrees Celsius, but stick your hand in to the depth of the length of your hand and you'll start feeling cooler sand inside. And this is exactly what the lizard does. So it runs on the surface during the cool of the morning, and then later in the morning it starts to dip in and out, shedding off heat as it goes into the dune, coming back out to hunt a little bit more, until eventually the sand temperature is just too hot, and then they just go in for the rest of the day. Another trick you'll see is that these lizards do a bit of a thermal dance where they just lift up their feet to get rid of heat. Because of the sorting of the sand, there's very little fine particles, and this means that air moves quite nicely through the sand, and the lizards are very capable of breathing while they're underneath the sand. Both of these lizards are primarily out to hunt for beetles and other similar creatures in the sand. They have been seen to eat vegetation material, but most likely that's to get water, not so much as food. That's it for this little video about these lizards. Hopefully, if you visit Sossusvlei, you get to experience these and other cool creatures of the desert.